I'd like to introduce you to a couple of my cohorts in crime here. Lisa Adams. And Lisa is a phenom when it comes to marketing strategies. She's a CMO and just is excellent communicator and quite an idea generator. And Kimberly O'Neill, who is on the board of directors of Encompass. She and her husband actually founded the company and recently went through a sale of the business. So she's going to talk a lot about what she's done to build the brand and how it personalized and where it got her to where she is today. So again, we're here to discuss decoding personalization, brand consistency in a customized world. Before we get going, I would like a show of hands just so that we understand a little bit more about the audience. How many of you are founders? Okay, do we need to ask any more questions? Do we have any investors in the room? Go-to-market folks? Okay, thank you. Great, we've got a couple of there too. Okay, good, that just helps us understand a little bit more about some of the speaking points and how we can communicate all of that with you. So our goal for you today is to understand not only what personalization is, but where you might be in your juncture of personalization with your solution, with your product. So at the end of today's discussion, if you can answer that question, then we're going to feel that we've done a great job, or you have a new path to travel down. With that said, there are three primary things that we want you to be able to take away as well. Why personalization matters, and what is the role of I almost said AEI, AI as a part of that, how personalization can add value, and how you can ensure brand consistency in a highly personalized world. Are there any other questions or thoughts that you might have that you hope we cover throughout the presentation so that we can adapt and bob and weave along the way? We've got process. And by the way, our deck is going to be available to you after. And please ask questions throughout the entire session. Okay? With that said, I will go ahead and hand it over to Kimberly.
All right. Can you hear me? All right, we got it. So what is personalization? I think that's probably the easiest question. And that is really delivering personalized, customized, tailored products, services, experiences, messaging, communication, whatever it might be to your audience. And it matters because the audience now demands it, right? We all want personalized experiences. Businesses even want personalized experiences. And I really liken this to if you're having a conversation with somebody and they use your name, you feel better, right? There's a connection established. You're more likely to continue that conversation, engage with that person, and your customers are going to be more likely to be loyal, come back, and really value the experience if it is personalized to them. Nobody anymore wants a generic experience. We've all been spoiled by little snippets of personalization, and we want more and more in our environments. The things that we're seeing in terms of personalization trends are exactly that, more. And the types of AI and technologies that are available are making this easier for companies to deliver more personalization within their products, services, and offerings.
So just how important is personalization? Non-personalized communications pose quite a risk in today's non-loyalty market. Our audiences are fragmented more today than they have been in years, thanks in part to COVID, but also thanks in part to technology and that instant gratification, us wanting those details, that experience at our fingertips. 71% of consumers expect personalization. 76% rather are frustrated with the current personalization that brands are delivering, and 77% of B2B buyers will not make a purchase today without personalization. So how does that meet the bottom line? Fast-growing companies who are deploying personalization and doing a good job drive 40% more revenue than their counterparts without personalization.
So I'm going to infuse a little bit of AI in this conversation, because we can have. Is it on? Okay, not going there. So if we think about personalization, even before AI, we were already personalizing, right? Just a show of hands. What is your comfort level, given where AI is today, in your knowledge of AI? So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's see the 4 and below. Not very familiar. Okay. The 5 to 8, and then the 9s and 10s. Okay, so we got a good mix, right? Show of hands, how many of you infuse AI in your daily work? Okay, half the room. How many of you use ChatGPT? Okay, all right. Before generative AI and before ChatGPT, how many of you are familiar with machine learning and or predictive analytics? Okay, got a very diverse audience, which I love, right? Which also makes it harder for personalization, right? But the reason I ask that is exactly why we're having this conversation, right? I can't have a personalized conversation with each one of you, which is very tricky. But AI, in the world of AI, changes that equation. But before I go into the personalization piece of this, there's this new law that Paul Reitzer, if you guys don't follow him, you should follow him, Roetzer, one of the premier experts in AI, came up with this law of an even AI distribution. And what that law really says is that you get out of AI as much as you put into it. There are people that won't have as much access to AI because their companies don't allow them to use it, or they don't have the technology. So there's an even distribution there, right? There's also what you're willing to give it. So for example, are you willing to give your race, your phone number, your medical history, your parents, your children's names? The more you give, the more you get. But the more you give, the potential for risk goes up. And that's the same for our potential customers. So although the stats are great, what Lori's told you is awesome, that everybody wants personalization, that companies grow 40%, what is it? What's the stat? They outperform their counterparts by 40%. As stewards of the brand, we're marketers, right? We have to be in line with the voice of the customer. We have to respect ethics. There needs to be responsible AI. You guys have heard about responsible AI. It's to ensure that AI is being developed, implemented, and used to enhance humanity, but not harm it. So in all the things that we're going to be talking about today, I want us to keep that in mind, that while we are thinking about deep personalization for people, there will be those that will be hesitant to go on this journey with us. And there will be those that will be embracing this fully. And AI is just a tool, just like a hammer can build or kill. AI can benefit, but it can also harm humanity depending on who is misusing it. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was grounded in that. So a few things, can you go back to the previous slide, please? So a few things about the role of AI and personalization. Just 3 things, data analytics and predictive modeling. This basically just says, we all have tons of data. And now all the data is available for us to analyze, right? Not just demographic data. There's psychographic data, there's behavioral data, every move. We went to Disney World, and I think Disney knew exactly when I needed to go to the bathroom because there was a bathroom nearby, right? They knew exactly what characters my children liked to see because those were presented to us. So data's all over us, and the predictive models can depict what you're going to do next. Chatbots and virtual assistants, for those of you that are deep into ChatGPT, Bard, Anthropic's Claude 2, you know what this is doing, right? What took us a long time to get an answer for because we need IT, we need software developers, now we can use natural language to interface with services and with products, which is awesome. Right? I can't code. Last time I coded was in Fortran, long time ago. That doesn't matter anymore, right? But now it's about talking to a non-human in a way that you would talk to a human because, again, the more you give it, the better the response is back. So I think this plays a really important part in personalization. But we also need to keep in mind, again, who are we personalizing for? I was talking to a humanoid company. They make humanoids, and they're going to put a humanoid like at the concierge, right? And they said, we have to make sure that the humanoid knows who it's talking to. Like if it's children, don't talk to children about suicide. Don't talk to children about drugs. All sorts of things that we need to think about when it comes to AI and personalization. This isn't as easy as put in brackets name, add Kim O'Neill, or put Lisa's name when you're sending an email. We are now deep into ethics and cultures and behaviors, right? And then the last thing is personalized content. If it's a child, you guys have seen ads, it's about toys that are blinking, bright lights, and big sounds, and very colorful. But if it's to the parents, messaging becomes long battery life, it's safe, non-toxic, all sorts of things, right? But it's from the same company, but the messaging is different depending on the audience. So that's basically what that is. All right, so just really quickly, regardless whether you're using AI or not, this is just a value chart or a framework, right? This is how you could potentially add value. AI actually accelerates the way that we add value through personalization, and we need to find our place in this ecosystem. And this XY chart here is, in this dimension, it's low to high control. That means the level of control that you have over the customer's experience of your brand. Okay? And then on the y-axis, it's low to high value. And as Lori pointed out, the more personalized it is, the higher the value. So we have chosen an example here that hopefully everybody understands. If you love to travel, you love to experience things. This is hypothetical. This is not how it works today. But you can imagine like a Disney Adventures or an Expedia or a National Geographic expeditions where you interface with these companies. Today, you might have to do some Google searches. If you want to do, let's say, a 6-day road trip to the Grand Canyon for a family of 4, you might go into ChatGPT and go, ChatGPT, can you please suggest an itinerary, 6-day road trip to the Grand Canyon for a family of 4? We don't want to drive more than 400 miles every day. We want to stay at moderately priced hotels, and we want kid-friendly restaurants. And ChatGPT would give you an itinerary, right? I actually did this past summer. Well, what if, in addition to just giving you the data, you put this in Expedia, it's got a chat interface, it gives you the data, and it actually takes action on it. What if it books all the hotels? It books your biking trip at the Grand Canyon. It makes the reservation at the restaurants for the times that you want. and gives you the ability to change it. Right? So it's now highly, highly personalized, highly, highly automated. And that's what the experience orchestrators are. They orchestrate everything in the background, they personalize it for you, they automate it for you based on what you've given it. So they're at the highest level of value to us. But it doesn't mean that the others are not not valuable. It's just a different value in the ecosystem, right? So value contributors would be like if you went to Europe, you might want to do, I don't know, go to a special restaurant, or you want to go biking, you want to go to the wine country. There's special value contributors, right? They add value in a very specific thing. And the way that they get reach is by partnering with the experience orchestrators. Now, down here, bottom right, these are experience enablers, right? They have a high degree of control. Because if United cancels a bunch of flights, you don't get to do your wine experience, right? But it's low value. There's lots of choices. United, I got Delta, I've got American, right? And there's not a lot of personalization that happens down here. For the most part, a seat is a seat, unless you want first class, business class, those kinds of things, or you want extra snacks. But this level of personalization is certainly not as deep as the one at the top right-hand corner. Down here, these are auxiliary services, like currency exchanges, those kinds of things, right? Ticketmaster, getting tickets to concerts. Their value is in convenience. You get off the airplane, it's right there, currency exchange. There's no personalization there. I don't know, maybe there's a multilingual person that offers a service, right? But this is something in your companies, just something to think about. Where in this value chain do you belong? It doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but it tells you the degree of personalization that you need to have, how you play with the different players. I think the top right-hand corner gives them a lot of control, a lot of value, but there's a lot of risk. You mess this up, the brand suffers, right? Disney would suffer if they mess this up. So those guys at the top right-hand corner really need to have deep partnerships and a lot of skill when it comes to technology. Yes?
Question, this is a question for all three of you. So I have a friend who's quite a foodie who went to ChatGPT and said, okay, where should I eat in Denver? And it listed all of her favorite restaurants. And so it executed perfectly, but she hated the experience. Like it made her feel like less sealed and important. It's kind of similar to how they used to make cake mixes. They changed it so you had to add an egg because like then people felt like they were baking. And so anyways, that's something you guys have seen where it's like customization is perfect, but that's actually like not the experience people want, or is that maybe my friend's a weirdo? Like I don't know.
So I'm just curious. What made her feel? How did she feel?
She realized that the robot knew everything that she knew. This was her hobby that she loved, and that she, had a lot of her person. She really cared about it, and look, this robot is great at this. So it's fine.
I guess like the thought I have is similar to Lisa's experience. Like you could ask ChatGPT or Expedia for how much of the experience you want it to build for you. And maybe it's finding the gradient of how much of that experience you want designed for you. Like suggest restaurants, but I'm going to pick what I order, right? Or some things like finding the space in between and realizing like, well, how much do you want of convenience versus just the complete experience? Because like my husband would hate that experience of everything is booked for you. He likes to just find the restaurant on the way, never have the reservations booked, and then I'm driving around for an hour. But I think it's finding your space of where you do feel comfortable. And at the beginning of what she was talking about, like how much information do you want to give, and how unknown do you want to get back?
Yeah, which I'm the opposite of Jonathan. My Disney World trip was like on a spreadsheet, color-coded, with times, I know exactly which characters my kids are going to meet at a given time, what shows we're going to go to. Like, I'm paying a lot of money to go to on this trip. I'm not going to walk around trying to figure out what I'm going to do, right? So very, very different kind of personalization.
But it kind of comes to a point of understanding your audience and your customers as well, because depending on the type of customer you have, they may not want that, right? Like the Disney moms do. But if you are a van road tripper, that's not the experience that you want, right? So I think you have to serve up the level of personalization with the boundaries that your customers actually want.
It brings up a completely different point, which is the quality of the prompt, which you're hearing a lot of people talk about right now. And we were looking at some data recently, and we were playing around with different computers, different details in the prompt, and different lengths of the prompt, and all the same information, but really analyzing the output. And what we determined was the more detail, like 3 paragraphs of a prompt, more totally tying into the behavior, the outcome that you want, all those sort of things really created a far better outcome for that experience, and it's creating far better marketing strategies as well.
Oh, I can talk loud.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to break this up because you probably wanted a Q&A later, but I love this screen, and I was thinking for those of us who may not make it into the upper right quadrant there, ultimately, I want you to spend a little more time on the value contributors, because that may be where we lie.
Yes, yes. So value contributors, I love value contributors because they make the experience so unique and special, right? Like I said, wine country tours. Without them, who's going to know the local market? Who's going to know the local experience? I just came back from Charleston. There was a value contributor there. They give walking tours about Charleston. Would an Expedia be able to do that? No, they don't know the city, right? United's not going to be able to do that. Certainly Ticketmaster or Travelex won't be able to do that, right? But their value there is just deep knowledge of something so local, so special, so unique to that city or whatever it might be, right? And we're giving you a very consumer-oriented example, given the audience, but I can take this chart and do a B2B SaaS example, right? You could put a big 5 consulting firms on the top right-hand corner, right? You could put Zoom, Google Docs down here, right? So there's a very, very similar model. You could put AT&T. They're experience enablers, right? You got internet access, but the minute your internet access goes down, all right, got a problem, right? So anyway, does that help? Okay.
The other point, I think that's really interesting here, if you've done a competitive analysis in industry insights and you understand precisely who your competitors are and where they fit in this quadrant, you can then determine what the sweet spot might be for you from a differentiation standpoint and market positioning. So don't just look at it as all brands. Take a look at your competitors and fill it in there as well.
It seems like the value contributors could have a whole diagram within that
Yeah, it could.
area itself.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So how to personalize and add value. You're still up, Lisa.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're not leaving yet.
Okay. Oh, yes, yeah. Personalization maturity model, you might be in different stages of this model. Basically, it says we go from basic to adaptive to predictive to this AI-driven hyper-personalization. That's a lot of words. Okay, so basic, that's simple. It's like, hello, name, right? And then you start populating that if you've got a marketing automation tool. You've seen those emails where it has your name on it, and you're like, okay. I actually got an email last week. It says, hello, test first name.
I got that too. Did you get the apology afterwards?
We got the apology afterwards, and it said, oh, we apologize for the highly impersonal email and for calling you test first name. So, but anyway, that's basic, right? Adaptive is I don't know if you've been to some websites where it's like choose your own journey. It adapts to who you are. Like it might say, you know, what do you like? Do you like wine? Do you like beer? Do you like spirits? And depending on what you choose, you know, you get led down the website with content very specifically designed for your preference, right? So that's adaptive. And sometimes along that journey, they might ask you a few more questions like, oh, how do you enjoy your wine? Do you enjoy it with a big group? Do you enjoy it by yourself? And then they take you down another path, right? So that's the adaptive. Predictive, this is where it gets scary, right? Because it now knows what you're gonna do next. So like in the marketing world, you give us a lot of signals. Like we know what websites you've gone to, what competitor sites you've visited, what things you've clicked on, where you tend to click, right side or left side, like we know. And then we also know the behavior of those that convert. So when you're starting to show behavior that you're going to convert, the model basically says, go call this person. The sales rep or a business development rep, we give them a list. Oh, this person started scoring pretty high in their engagement, therefore call them. So that's the predictive. The personalization that happens is we try to drive you down the next path that will get you to convert. Because we know based on what we've seen with other people that, hey, once this person looks at pricing, they're ready. We're going to give them a case study, right? We're predicting what you need next so that we can convert you. Pretty savvy. And then the AI-driven hyper-personalization. This is not about, all right, for children, here's the personalized message. For moms, here's a personalized message. For dads, here's the message. This is now down to, here's the message for Lisa. And we know what she's going to need when she's researching, when she's evaluating, when she's buying, when she's using, when she wants more, and ultimately when we want her to give us a good review. Highly personalized to the human being and not just to a segment or a demographic. That's what AI can help us do without a lot of human intervention, without a lot of effort. So anyway, this is a journey in terms of personalization. I'm still up. Okay. You guys can tell that I just got off on a plane and I've had a long week. I think you had asked a question about process, right? Okay. So very high level, we're not going to get deep into process, but these are the different things that we need to think about when it comes to personalization. And we're really personalizing the entire customer experience. It's not just acquisition of new customers. It's when we upsell, cross-sell, when we want to ensure that they stay with us, or retention, to building loyalty with them so that they, give us a good review and they bring others along with us. Data collection and analysis is super important because that is where our personalization will come from, right? Again, the more data we have, the better apt we are to personalize. Technology and infrastructure, depending on where you are in the stage, there's already a lot of existing technology out there that already incorporates AI, in many cases for free, right? So with technology, especially when you're thinking about differentiation, know that just by having AI doesn't differentiate you because everybody else has AI, right? I'm talking to some of the large companies and they're like, oh, we're built on OpenAI's ChatGPT or on Anthropic or on Cohere. I'm like, well, everybody else is. That's not differentiated, right? In fact, every time a Meta or a Google or a Microsoft does an AI announcement, I feel like the valuation of startups is just drop. And many of them drop to zero, right? So think about, if you're going to differentiate on technology, what is it in technology that we could differentiate on? Because AI no longer, specific aspects of AI no longer allows us to do differentiation. Content and messaging, again, you just have to have some good marketers, right? Because this is about crafting content that's relevant to the audience in the tone of voice that you want them to receive your brand. So, a good example here is like my tone of voice with my husband is different to my kids, is different to like my colleagues, right? Husband, depending on the day, it could be really bad. But that tone of voice, I have to go into ChatGPT and say, sometimes it's really flowery in the language. Have you guys noticed that? It's like, goes on forever. I'm like, simple, straightforward language, no flowery words, please. And then sometimes I have to say, my reader is reading at a 10th grade level. Sometimes you have to say that to make it more relevant and accessible to the masses, right? Because it's too flowery or it's a little too complex for the average human being, in my opinion. User interfaces and experience, I think this is a place where you can really create a lot of differentiation, especially if you deeply know your market, because this is how they're going to receive your brand. This is how they're going to talk to you, not just when you're selling something, but also when they have a problem, also when they want to buy more, right? And when you have a very specific audience that you're going after and you know them so well, I don't care how big Amazon or Google or some of your competitors are, that interface and how you make it easy for them and how you make it so relevant to them is going to be one of the key things that will differentiate you in the market. Integration and automation, very, very important given the ecosystem that you saw previously, right? So APIs, anything like that, workflow automation, it's super important. And then last but not least, feedback and iteration. If you're not getting a lot of responses, maybe it's the messaging, right? Or if you're getting a lot of calls to customer support, maybe something upfront needs to change so that you don't get a lot of questions during the life cycle, right? So put in something in the process that allows you to receive information from the market and not just throw up on the customers, right? We need a two-way feedback mechanism so that we could constantly evolve the infrastructure. Okay, am I still up?
Nope, you're
Okay,
not.
thank you.
I think I'm up next, and I'm here to provide a little bit of real-world experience with some levels of this personalization. And the first example I'm going to share is with Encompass Technologies. And as Lisa said, I was one of the founding team, worked with Lisa on marketing over the last few years. And we can go ahead and click to the next slide. What Encompass does is provide ERP solutions, like software as a service, ERP solutions to the beverage distribution industry. And the beverage distribution industry is kind of unique in that it has 4 tiers. There are the manufacturers, which are brewers or distillers, people that are making the product. There are the distributors or wholesalers that warehouse it and deliver it. They deliver it to the 3rd tier, which is the bars, liquor stores, and restaurants, and then that's where consumers go to buy it. So you have these 4 tiers. And I would say that over my tenure at Encompass, we were probably flirting in that adaptive to predictive range of where we are in terms of the personalization journey, right? We hadn't yet really stepped into full AI. But the thing that was unique about Encompass in our personalization relative to some other businesses is the level of personalization that we had to do for each of those tiers in that B2B market. We couldn't go to market with one set of messaging that was directed at distillers and retailers, right? Like they speak entirely different languages. So we had to develop personas to talk to brewers versus distillers, to talk to distributors, to talk to different types of retailers, and to talk to different types of consumers across a very broad set of products that we were offering. And then when you get inside any one of those businesses, inside any one of those tiers, there were different personas that we were reaching out to and providing personalized experiences to, because the way you talk to a brewmaster who is probably wearing galoshes and shorts and likes to talk about chemistry and hops is very different than if you are talking to the CFO of a major beer distributor across like 5 states, right? Like that tone that we're talking about, the language, the messaging, everything about that interaction has to be different. But a little bit later, I'll talk about how did we maintain that brand consistency, while delivering personalized communications, products, and messaging to those personas. Once we got inside the tiers, right? So now we're delivering product to a brewery, product to a distributor, product to a retailer. We're personalizing that even further, and this gets into some more of that adaptive, guided journey types of experiences. We did a lot of targeted inbound and outbound marketing that was very different depending on who we're talking to. Specialized landing pages, custom campaigns, all of that guided journey that's like, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll give you the information that makes the most sense for you and your business. Once you actually bought, and now you're a user of the software, that personalized journey continued in terms of the user experience with roles and persona-based user interfaces. If you were the back office accounting person at this beer distributorship, your user interface was completely different than what this salesperson in the field experienced. Like not even the same pages, very different things served up depending on the time of the month or what was going on in the business at that time, as well as guided support experiences because of who's calling in, who's clicking into our support experience, and what are they looking for. So again, trying to provide people with information that was relevant to them without them having to wade through a lot of irrelevant information to get what they needed. My next example, this is a little bit more in the consumer space. So Appy Hour is a pre-revenue startup that pitched me last month, and they are betting entirely on personalization. This is what they do. They're also in the bev tech space, and they have launched an application that is directed towards consumers. It allows the brand owners, those breweries or distilleries or distributors, to place ads, share their happy hour specials, all of their deals that are going on in a given market. And then the consumers are being given very personalized, targeted notifications about where's the best happy hour for me this week. So it knows all of these things that maybe, again, people are comfortable or uncomfortable sharing. Like, what do you like to drink? What day do you like to drink? Who do you like to drink with? Maybe, where are you right now? And what are the best bars in the 20-foot walking radius from where you're at? And they've launched this in the Tampa college tourism market. Like that's where they've started, and they're moving into Colorado soon. But they're also providing this feedback loop. So they not only are predicting and analyzing where the consumer is going to be and what do they want and serving up these very hyper-targeted notifications, but then they know what you actually did. And they're serving that information back to the brand owners so that they can make their ads even more targeted and more specific to those personas and those individual people to continue that loop forward.
So next we're going to talk about a very non-traditional example of personalization as we maintain brand consistency. The individual on the screen there is Doug Campbell. He started Solid Power, which is a solid-state battery company. And at this stage, we managed all communications for the brand. At this stage, our buyer was the investor, and our big audience was the media. So all we were focused on was a transparency tour. How do we create transparency in a market that nobody trusts right now? And we had a very, very difficult manner in which we had to personalize because everything was one-on-one. There was not a lot of automation when it comes to a one-on-one conversation with a reporter. But by stripping off some of that information and providing a transparency tour where we brought the governor, state senators, U.S. senators, BMW, not IBM, I did that yesterday as well, BMW, Toyota to the table, we took everyone on tours. one-on-one tours and had one-on-one conversations with them and basically moved them through a funnel by conversation and by iteration and by really showing them that what we were doing was real. Later on, before we got everyone to the transparency tour, we implemented AI tools that allowed us to understand if the reporter opened up the email, if they read the press release, if they went to the website, and what page they spent most time on the website. So when they came to the transparency tour, we were able to hone in on what part of the tour they would be most interested in. So highly technical approach to PR that most, and quite frankly, funding that most people don't really consider or think about. All these tools here are softwares, AI softwares that are currently deployed within the agency tech stack, among others as well, that really do help with that. We also were able to tailor the view of or understand more details about the journalist's interests by the example I just shared with you. We optimize subject lines with AI based on an article, not just 100 reporters, same subject line. A subject line optimized based on an article they recently wrote about the industry so that we got them more detail about, to get them to open up the email. We talked about tailoring the pitches, the email open rates, and then sentiment is something really important here as well. Critical Mention, our primary software tool, allows us to understand what the sentiment is of the reporter toward a topic based on analyzing all of their writings. So if we have someone who's really negative about a highly controversial industry, then we may not want to pitch them. Or if they've just written something and we know that our product is 10 times better, we find a different way to pitch them. And then obviously understanding the tone and sentiment on replies, which are pretty direct when it comes to the media. So these are some examples that can really work well for you right now. By the way, our strategy for funding was 20 people. That's all we needed to get in front of was 20 people. Doug had a $1 billion IPO in 2021, and he sold his shares for $200 million last year. So real success story of not a lot of outbound marketing. It was all PR, and a lot of it was pre-launch as well. It took about 3 years to get it to the point that we really had interested parties. Yeah. Okie dokie. So let's keep on moving along. So along with ensuring brand consistency, something I should mention, when it comes to PR, you have no control, right? It's all editorial. By controlling the narrative and by taking them and providing them with key points about what we knew we wanted to get published, we were in a far better spot to control the narrative with brand consistency. So let's talk about some of the challenges that are also involved. And these are some real life experiences that most of us in the room have, definitely know about. So dilution is a real risk here. A great example of dilution is Coca-Cola. In 1985, they came out with New Coke. They just pushed out New Coke. How many of you were around in 1985? Okay. How many of you tried New Coke? How many of you hated New Coke? Exactly. So the difference here is with AI sentiment analysis, they could have tested consumer reception to the new product before pushing it out in a very broad way. And by the way, just last week, Coke introduced a new brand that was totally AI driven. So they're redeeming themselves a bit, but this is how important understanding your audience is. Let's look at fragmentation. So I love fashion, and I love European fashion. One of my go-to brands is a brand called Smythe. They have incredible jackets. If Smythe goes to market in India and they do an analysis there and they get insights, and then they go to Venezuela, get insights there, and then the UK, maybe Northern Ireland, and then the US, what is their market going to look like? It's going to be very, very fragmented. So in these situations, you can use AI to analyze global consumer trends so that you're following and getting ahead of the trend, not just spot pushing out markets with no brand consistency or cohesion. Quality is something that's also very, very important. Imagine a luxury hotel offering personalized decor experiences in each room. But each time you go to those rooms, it's a different experience. So the quality of personalization can be a very, very negative situation there. And AI can be used to curate personalized options based on what a consumer wants versus you guessing what they want. So reactivity, a skincare brand is constantly changing their brand formation based on trends. You know, is it organic? Is there a new oil that's really popular? Is caffeine now good for all of our wrinkles on our faces? I mean, all these sort of things are trends that they can follow. But what the issue is in that situation is they're not developing brand consistency because they're constantly changing the brand. So predictive AI can determine the longevity and relevance of trends so that you can be a part of it and then get ahead of the next one owning it. Stereotyping and online stores recommending products based on outdated gender norms, like assuming all women want pink products and all men are interested in tools. So advanced AI modeling can be trained to avoid these very, very broad stereotypes. And lastly, appeal. So a popular soda brand creates individualized commercials for all the different audiences and all the different groups that they're marketing to, like Pepsi's iconic 1990 commercials. While AI can sentiment audiences for targeted campaigns, it can also analyze the broad sentiments, helping brands craft messages with a wide appeal instead of something that may not resonate at all. So these are some great examples of some of the brand challenges that we've faced as marketers and company leaders.
All right. I have a couple of just really quick slides now that you know, like the 2x2 matrix. But this is just slightly different. The degree of personalization is on the y-axis. And then this is the depth of the engagement. So is it a quick engagement? They just want a quick answer? Or is it something that, hey, we need to work with you for an extended period of time, right? So slightly different from what you saw previously. But here what we're showing, these are just examples of different ways you can personalize based on what you're trying to achieve with that customer. There are certain things that are all about efficiency, quick, right? I don't need it personalized, right? You know, Zoom is not personalized, it's just quick, in and out, 30-minute call. Asana for project management, Amazon, very quick. Over here, interactions, it's still not very personalized, but it's an extended period of time, right? You might be on a call for a lot longer with American Express if your credit card got stolen, right? So that there's an extended period of time, and there's some level of personalization, but it's not deep, right? This is more like a help desk, you know, TripAdvisor, same thing. Top left-hand corner, these are specialists. When you go to Spotify, there's songs specifically for you, right? But very low engagement. You listen to a song, maybe a couple songs, maybe on a trip, right? That kind of thing. HubSpot for marketers on Netflix. When you look at the various movies that you might like rom-coms or action movies, those types of things. But now we're getting deeper into personalization, but still not a lot of engagement. Top right-hand corner, expert engagements, right? They're in there for a longer period of time. They're impacting multiple functions, multiple departments, maybe across different cycles, different processes. And it's highly personalized depending on who they're talking to. They might be talking to the legal department, to the sales department. So those companies in the top right-hand corner have deep levels of personalization and deep levels of engagement. So you also kind of have to think about that as you build your products and as you identify your audiences. On the next slide, it's just slightly a different take. On the previous slide, what you saw was specific companies operating in each quadrant. These are companies that can operate in multiple quadrants, right? These happen to be big companies, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could be a small company. So, you can see the Microsoft, the Apple, and the Salesforce products. You might have an efficiency product, but your interaction zone might be your customer service department, right? That kind of thing. You might have a professional services program where you're offering some consulting, and that would be in the top right-hand corner, right? Even if you're a small business. And then you might have a specialist zone because you have something very specific to, I don't know, mechanics or restaurants or something like that, right? So even a single company can operate in multiple zones, in 2 or more zones. Okay. Last but not least, what you came here for is, all right, Lisa, Kim, and Lori, you guys have talked about personalization and AI and how it's going to change the world. But how do we ensure our brand identity, our brand value, right? We talked about, hey, you have to personalize based on audience insights. You have to be consistent in how you deliver, whether they're on a mobile device, whether on a website, whether it's in person. And you have to communicate effectively, right? But how do you ensure, hey, I could be talking to children, moms, and dads. I talk differently. How do you ensure that you have brand consistency, that you don't look like a different person every time you talk to somebody different? The overarching theme here that needs to be consistent is your brand value, what you stand for, right? And who you are as a brand. So for example, I'm going to make it a little bit more personal. One of my values is a growth mindset, right? Failures to me are just a stepping stone to success. And that's what I hold true to myself. Regardless of who I talk to, is my child, my boss, my husband. I can have a different tone of voice. Sometimes I'm empathetic, sometimes I'm authoritative. But deep, I'm all about a growth mindset, right? You might be all about innovation, right? You're driving innovation. You're driving the next best thing. But how you talk in a customer service tone you might be very empathetic in customer service. But in a selling mode, you might be innovative and progressive, but reflective. Something like that, right? But your value of innovation remains the same. Does that make sense?
And we just got 7 more minutes, by the way, so we'll be quick here and then open it up for some more answers.
So I wanted to share a little bit of how at Encompass, we took what Lisa just shared and actually brought it to life, right? I think it's helpful to have some real life examples of what that looked like. And from an Encompass standpoint, we had, basically 4 different products that we were servicing at one point. Encompass, which is for distributors, Vintrace for winemakers, OCloud for brewers, DSW Link for retailers. So we're talking to different people, but how did we stay true to that? And really, the values that we were talking about at the top is the deep industry knowledge that we brought across the supply chain. We're talking about innovation to everyone that we talk to, the idea of open interfaces and honesty and collaboration, our extensible platform. And then with that, we had consistent vision, values, language that we're using across the board. But when it comes to the insight, delivery, communication, on that audience side, we did really have to learn. And some of it was a little trial and error of what resonates with these different audiences and doesn't. Even when we went to trade shows, we realized maybe a little bit late in the game that when you go talk to distributors, they like to see people in a jacket and khakis because this is a kind of a more corporate environment. But if you show up and talk to brewers like that, they don't want to talk to you. You better have your polo and your shorts on, right? Like that's the type of personalization and modification we were doing. And then you slice it in a different way. When we were talking to really large corporate clients versus very small mom and pop shops, that level of technical sophistication varies, and we have to tune our message and tone it in that way. But we're still talking about our openness, our innovation. And the consistent delivery, we want to have very consistent experiences for everyone, even though we're tailoring the messaging. So that's a single website with multiple landing pages. We had a single combined user conference with multiple tracks where we could speak to people in a personal way. A single tool set with those guided experiences that take users through an experience that is designed for them. And then when it comes to effective communication, the last little tidbits I would say as a founder is that all of this communication, you think about what it's like on the outside for your customers, it has to start on the inside. Your employees and your team has to be all on the same page as your values, your messaging, and understand your personalization strategy so that they can live it and they can represent it effectively into the market. It does take iteration. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. Maybe you go too far, and you got to pull back that personalization to give people some creative freedom in their experiences. And then my other learning and takeaway is that M&A can definitely have an impact on this, and it's really an additional layer of challenging, whether you're being acquired or you are the one doing the acquisition, to make sure that you keep that all together and aligned as you're implementing it going forward.
Okay, and with that, we'd like to open it up with some questions, additional questions that any of you might have, insights, concerns, anything going to keep you up at night now after seeing the amount of work that needs to be done. Right back here, I'll call you next.
So do you have like the startup version of this? Because I can assume that your services are extremely expensive and top notch, but like, what's the bottom rung for those of us with a more limited budget?
You know, that's obviously a very difficult question to answer. I'd be more than happy to have, a quick phone call with you to talk about some areas that I think that you might be able to get started in and get you down your path on your own, and then, we could go from there.
Yeah, one more thing. I wouldn't worry so much, right? Yeah, the way we think about this is think big, start small, move fast, right? So you might have grand visions today, but we got to start small, right? All you've seen here is like the big vision, but not everybody got here overnight, right? But there is a start small, and there's a move fast motion, and I think startups have the opportunity to move fast because we're much smaller, right? Just like me.
Can you name some softwares or programs you're using specifically for this? Just like a list of 5 to 7.
So you know what? We have a tech stack broken down by funnel, part of the funnel that people most typically reside in. So we'd be more than happy to send that out to you after the session. It'd probably be easier. And then we had a question right here.
Firstly, thank you for the presentation. Really enjoyed and engaging. So thank you for that. So I'm a founder. I have a tech company where we did a lot of work in privacy-driven personalization, and we really looked at this what we call the personalization paradox. Much more deeply. So essentially more data for the hyper personalization, but then privacy laws changing. All over the world, including here in the United States. So just wanted to your views on. Like, how do you think, as personalization, the market evolves, are consumers or customers getting over the privacy, trend, or do you think that companies are responding or reacting to the privacy trend, as they go deeper into their personalization journeys?
I'm going to try to answer your question with a non-answer. So let me just set your expectations. I think there is so much happening and so much innovation happening so fast that ethics, personalization, security, responsible AI is lagging the advancement in technology, right? Like literally every week there's something new. But only just recently did we see lots of meetings in Washington happening right now with Gates, Musk. There's like 6 or 7 of them, right? Our leaders in Washington are probably some of the least knowledgeable about AI, right? And now they're trying to get ahead of this. So I don't know that anyone knows right now. We've got Silicon Valley talking to Washington, trying to figure this out because we're moving so fast, and we need to ensure that responsible AI is actually going to be able to mitigate some of the risk that we didn't talk about. Some of the risk that could potentially hamper humanity. So I don't know the answer, but there's some very smart people trying to figure it out, right? Yes, sir.
This came up in the morning session. I think one way to describe it is that the U.S. is innovation in AI and EU is regulation. And I think that we're going to see a lot of this come from Europe first, relative to how they keep it in a box. I do think that the happy medium, potentially relative to much of what you spoke of today, is using it as a tool that then includes the manual process in some cases. Yes, when you're talking about marketing, especially websites, et cetera, that's automated to the largest extent. But in a lot of cases, what you're describing in some of the slides can be applied directly to your customer engagement, your client engagement directly, leveraging AI to help you get there, but predictive analysis can be picked up by a human at that point and communicated and in some cases upsold if that's applicable, leveraging these same tools.
That's great. We have a question over here.
Hi, okay, so I'm coming here as a tech person, not a business person. It's like, thank you so much, you guys. I don't know anything about what you're saying. But I have a few like tech thoughts for people if they're in the mood. I want to read the room. I don't want to like give unsolicited, like, do people want to hear some like, scrappy little company machine learning ideas, or do we not want to do that? Okay, is that okay? I'll be real fast. Yeah, so some really good tools you might want to look into is, first of all, there's like a bunch of little tools that like probably you can integrate with your website. I'd really recommend doing that. The biggest thing is that you can't do any AI without any data. So you need to be like collecting data yesterday and like get on that and talk to an expert about how to do that. If you want to start customizing now and you don't have any data, I don't know how to do this like on a website, but look into the multi-armed bandit is a really charming algorithm. They use it at Netflix. And yeah, for customer segmentation, you want to do clustering algorithms. And if you want to get really fancy, in Python, you can run, it's hard to explain, random forest. There's like a button you can push in the random forest where it tells you what's important. So you throw a bunch of data at it and say, this is what's actually predictive. And you don't have to put it in your website, but then you just know as a human this is what actually matters. And it's often very surprising. So all of this, like a smart college kid can do, and you can hire a child to do it. That's what I would do. And you also want to be looking at like tools that exist you can integrate with your site that start collecting the data.
That's great. Thank you.
Is you don't have to go so far all the way to like automated AI for everything. There's a lot of things that you can do with the humans, a few algorithms and technology. There's a lot of things you can do still with like actual programming before you get into incorporating a lot of AI. So it's a gradient. And what we're hoping everybody kind of comes away with today is like, where are you now? Where do you think you can be, with the type of products that you're offering, and where do you want to be on that requirement?
Thanks, everyone, so much. It was a joy being with you all today.
Thank you. Look us up on LinkedIn